so I tend to wait until the numbers start counting down. And here we go. Hello, folks, and welcome. I am your host, Eric. I still haven't figured this out, Smith. Let's jump right into my favorite horror with author, playwright, audiobook narrator, Chris Sorensen. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Eric, how you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good.
I did just say it. Before we get started, I'm gonna take a sip from this completely generic coffee mug of mine.
Why don't I do the same here?
It tastes better in a harmful monkey press coffee mug.
It does. That was not planned at all.
No. I saw before we started recording. You took a sip. I was like, oh, I've got one too from you. Thank you very much. Now let's see. If I'm not mistaken, if memory serves, I could be completely wrong. I think it was Hunter Shea that sent me a message saying, "Can this guy contact you?" Does that sound right?
It sure does.
Okay.
I ran. Hunter actually he read a middle grade book that I wrote, and Mad Scientists of New Jersey. And he had great things to say about it, and I reached out to him, and one thing led to another, which always is the case with Hunter, and we ended up going to a bar in Port Authority in New York, and just hanging out, drinking too much, and talking a lot, and he gave me all these names of people that he wanted. He said, you got to reach out to this person, you got to reach out to this. So he gave me about maybe 10, 11 names and email addresses, which was I just wanted a nice cold beer, but he gave me all these contacts, and so I contacted everybody, and I think you may have been the first person to get back to me.
Nice. All right. I like to be first.
You get the chicken dinner.
Now I'm going to take a quick look at this before I say. I believe so. Your first book, or first of the Messy Man trilogy,
right?
The Nightmare Room here. Now, you offered, I believe, once we had contact, you offered to send, I don't know if it would have been a physical copy or a digital copy. And the first book, I believe, I said, no, thank you, I'll buy it.
Yes.
Because at that point, I basically had stopped taking requests.
You had, yeah.
Because I feel obligated then, and then if it's a horrible book, I'm like, oh, what am I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to give it a good review because it was sent to me, but I feel bad giving it a bad review. So I'd rather just buy it on my own. And,
right.
And I trust Hunter. So that was sort of the deciding factor. Was Hunter says, this guy's on the up and up, so I'll pick up this book and I'll give it a try. And I enjoyed it. I loved it. So it's the Messy Man trilogy. We have The Nightmare Room, and then book 2, The Hungry Ones, which might be, let me see. So this is the one you did send me.
Okay.
And then I believe I picked this one up on my own.
No scribble from me in it. Okay.
The Messy Man. Yeah, that's why I had to check for it. Because I couldn't remember which one it was. I knew you had sent me one.
Right.
So this kind of through Hunter.
Right.
And we're going to get back to that, but I want to start with some audiobook questions.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Excuse me. I'm tempted to start with the generic question, which is, how did you get into being an audiobook narrator?
I lucked into it.
Okay.
I was on tour with a terrible production of Moliere, and you get to know your fellow actors on the road pretty intimately. And one of my buddies, Andy Paris, who worked at Recorded Books, had taken time off to do this play, and at the end he said, "Hey, you should come in and lay down an audition." I went, "Okay, I've never done that before." So I went in. I met Claudia, who owned it at the time, and she sat with me for I'd say about 45 minutes going through my audition, and I thought I was going to be there by about 5 minutes. And she started giving me tips and gave me the best bit of advice ever. She said, "Tell the story as if you're telling the story to one person across a campfire." And I've kept that as close to that as I can. Sometimes I'm too tired, but yeah, it was luck. My buddy said, "Come on in," and by the next week I had my first book, and then it was slow in the beginning, and I had to go into the city to do it. But now that I live out here in Western New Jersey and I have my own, sound booth out in the garage and can record whenever I want, I've been pretty steady for the past 10 years. So
nice.
Yeah.
Now, as someone who, when reading out loud, can barely make it through 2 sentences without some sort of mistake, what kind of preparation do you have for getting into the sound booth and reading whatever it is you're doing?
Apple juice. I drink apple juice because that gets rid of popping sounds. You have to warm up a little bit, otherwise one chapter, your morning chapter is going to be a lot lower than your evening chapter. So you got to warm up, and every time you go in, so you have a consistent sound. I'm doing a lot of nonfiction this year, so most of my prep has been vocabulary. But usually when I'm doing fiction, you've got to read the book. You start mapping out all your different characters, how you're going to differentiate them without ruining your voice. How many times the author says this person has a low and guttural voice. Is there anybody else that you wanted to have a low and guttural voice? Well, no, they can't, because they're going to get mixed up. And if it's a series, look ahead, because sometimes authors think to say, "Hey, he's from Ireland in book 3." So that's only happened to me one time. But yeah, I mean, I read it for sense. I read it as if I'm reading a book very fast for somebody who wants me to beta read or something like that. So I just zip through it, make my notes, and then it's just about relaxing and finding it on the page as you go.
Now, I see that the listening time for audiobooks varies greatly, of course, depending on what it is. But let's say we have a book that's 8 hours listening time.
Right.
Can you say how long that takes you? How much work? How much time goes into that 8-hour listening experience?
It's getting the recording is getting longer as I'm getting older. When I was a whippersnapper, I used to be able to go into the studio and for a 2-hour session get 90 minutes of finished audio. But that was back when I was young and I was reading it out loud before I even got into the booth, because I was so nervous about it. Because I am dyslexic and I make mistakes every 2 or 3 sentences on new material. So I did twice as much work before I even got into the studio. I'd say it's usually a 2-to-1 for me. So 18 would be about 16 hours in the booth. Dialogue in fiction tends to go faster because I think fiction writers are hearing it in their head more than nonfiction writers. I'll on the whole. But so when you're reading something about the history of bow hunting, it's going to read differently, more trippingly on the tongue, if you're reading fiction than bow hunting. So.
Okay. So you say you can get through, or sometimes you'll get through a couple lines before you trip up.
Right.
So then do you start over, or is it just a matter of finding the best take, I suppose, and editing all of these bits together?
It's really I've got my keyboard in front of me, and it's a quiet keyboard, and I just use these fingers, and I do a blip blip. I use Pro Tools, and it jumps back slightly. I can then hear where I left off and where the new sentence, where the sentence with a mistake in it is coming up, and hit record right as it's coming up, and it's seamless. So it's called punch record. So, and that's what you deliver to, let's say, Tantor, Audible, or recorded books. You deliver the raw file with a punch record, and if there's any little glitch at all, they'll snip that out. But when I've recorded my own stuff, I haven't found any. I think I'm just very adept at making mistakes and fixing them myself. So,
All right, I had no idea that's how it went.
Yeah, a little carpal tunnel syndrome after a long book. So,
all right, let me throw this out at you. Is there any book that you would love to do? Any book you've read in the past, anytime, obviously in the past. You haven't read any in the future yet. What would be like the dream book for you to do?
Yeah, and I know there are a few versions out there, but I'd love to do Dandelion Wine by Ray Bradbury. My dad grew up in the same neighborhood as Ray Bradbury. Actually, the ravine was right next to his grandparents' house, and so I think I go back to that book once every 5 years or so and reread it. It's so lyrical and simple, and it just captures a slice of a very specific part of Illinois that I know very well, and bottles it up in that book. And that would be heaven for me. I wouldn't get paid a lot because it's a short book, but but yeah, that would be it.
I think beautiful is the perfect way for me to describe it.
Yeah.
Describe that book. It's fantastic. I haven't read it in ages, but and I should go back and reread it. But it's wonderful.
I had the opportunity when I was working in the city. I was working in some office, and I saw this notice that at Brentano's, Ray Bradbury was going to be signing his new book on, I can't remember the name of it, but it was about his experience working on Moby Dick, and writing the script for that, and the locals and the production. And so I went there to buy the book, but I brought my battered paperback copy of Dandelion Wine, and I spoke with him for a little while, and he drew a little dandelion in it for me and started talking to me about how he had helped bring back the Waukegan Public Library, and people behind me were getting mad. So that was special. I could hear his accent just reminded me of my grandfather. He sounded like we're from the same clan.
I actually got to meet him out in California when I was in the service. Somehow finagled the day off because I had found out he was going to be at the local, I think it was a community college, local small college though, in around Santa Maria, California. And I don't remember if I found someone to switch with me or how I got the day off, but I was able to go. But because it was such short notice, I had nothing for him to sign. But I did. So I took, there was the flyer
right
for the thing, and that's what I had him sign for me. But yeah, that was, I wish I had a book to take, of course.
Yeah, right. Well, better no book than somebody else's book. So,
although that could be if the author has a sense of humor.
Right. Will you please sign this Isaac Asimov for me?
Yeah. Wonder if I could get Dean Koontz to sign a Stephen King. Speaking of books, as we said, you have a little trilogy of your own here.
A full house.
So how did this come about? This little project.
This, well, I am in my office, my newly renovated office, in the house that my wife grew up in. And one room over was when we moved in here, her elderly aunt lived there, and she was pretty much bedridden. And so we were here, the nurse was here, And so I knew I wanted to write something about that experience, because there was one world going on up here, and then I would go down to the basement, and I had my old booth down in the basement. And so I referred to it as my little nightmare room. I said, okay, I'm going down to the nightmare room. And Deb said, okay. And she calls it the plant. I call it the
That's
nightmare
the
room.
name of the book.
That is, yeah, yeah. So I wanted to write something about families, and I wanted to write something about the end of a relationship with an elderly parent figure. And I also wanted to, I'd never read anything about anybody's experiences in a booth recording. And when you're recording at 2 a.m. and you're getting real punchy and you have a deadline, every now and then you say something and you go, wait a minute, what did I actually say? And you have to rewind it. And there was this one time, and I swear to God it wasn't me, but I was going along, and then I saw this little blip. I went, what was that word? Because you tune yourself to the waveforms. And I went, what is that? And I rewound it, and I just heard Chris. And either I was really out of it, or something just whispered my name in the booth, but I was done for the night. So I just I wanted to I worked on that story for a long time. Then there was a producer who wanted to make a film of it. We met a number of times. He came out of soap operas and was a director of soap operas and really liked the story. I actually pitched it at Newark Newark Airport when he was in between flights, and he loved this one. And so I worked on it with him, just an outline on it for about a year. And then when that fell through, as most of these things do, I left it for about 2 years. Then I went, what about that? What about that story? What about that story? So I ripped out everything that we added, and I stripped it down to just the characters. And so I ended up with just Peter and Hannah, the couple, Ellen, the psychic, and the creature. That was it. And there was an elderly aunt that they lived with that went away. So yeah, I stripped it down to the parts that I really liked and started rebuilding it. And it came quick. It came quick. So
Great. Well, one of the things I like about the whole series is all three books, of course, fit together, but when taken individually, they're also different.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I love the fact that Ellen gets her own book, because she is a wonderful character.
She is she is knocking at the back of my head right now. She wants her own first person book. So that has nothing to do with this series. So
I wouldn't say no to that.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been great response to these stories. But it was, so as I pointed out, I don't know if you know John Bender. He wrote the book Chainsaw. I've become friends with a lot of people on Twitter, and I revealed to him, because he's such a fan of the movies, I went, there's something subconsciously that I was basing the three books in some way on the Back to the Future trilogy. You have the first story. The second story kind of undoes some of the first story,
Yeah.
and the last story goes even farther back. So I have
I can see that.
Zemeckis to thank for that.
Yeah, I can completely see that. And I love the sort of, see, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't read them. But yeah, the movement through time maybe is the best, the closest way for me to put it without giving anything away.
Yeah.
It's not, when you take the three books together, it's not linear,
right,
or completely linear.
Mm-hmm.
Which is that's a nice little trick, I suppose.
I think and this is something that some people have had issues with, but it was always my intention to do it. Was I wanted to find something that was very heinous, to many people. That happens, and I wanted to find somebody, especially in book 2, how they have to pay for that, and through that come to some manner of redemption, or at least a way to at least get back onto the road of life, even after something so horrible that has happened. I'm not going to say what it is, but yeah. So I didn't want to just leave it and say, okay, this is all done. I wanted to, because second chances. I mean, I'm a big Doctor Who fan too, but the idea that time is malleable, and that one choice doesn't always have to be set in stone. I love exploring that.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Well, aside from Ellen knocking at the back of your head,
Yes.
Anything else in the works?
Quite a few, maybe too many. We've actually been renovating the house for the past. We thought it was going to be 6 months. It's turning into 12 months. So this is my first week back in my office. But I've been helping out with I have a play that's going on in Colorado right now. I did some rewrites on that and wrote a musical haunted review for that. I have 2 creature feature books that I'm working on, along with a third. I don't know if I should mention. Well, there will be a third in the creature feature books written with another author. So it's basically like going back to a grindhouse movie theater, and there's book 1, book 2, and then book 3 is by these two. The minds that brought you these things bring you the third. Covers are all done. Covers are the easy part. I work on my own covers. I do it for like 3-4 months. I work on the things. When I can't think of what to write, I work on a cover. So,
well, I love a creature feature.
Yeah, it's a like a triple feature creature feature. So
nice.
So little shorter, little tighter, little nastier. A lot of fun stuff. But then I've got 2. I've got another haunting I've got a haunting standalone set in Cripple Creek, Colorado. That I'm eager. Really, how many of these do you want to hear, Eric? I mean, I've got a buddy picture about a post-apocalyptic about a demon pandemic. I've got the Ellen. It's Ellen 1, 2, and 3. I'm calling them right now. So it'll end up being 3, but standalones. 3. It's more like mysteries told from her perspective.
So you're keeping a little busy.
I'm keeping a little busy, and I have to write a new play, I'm sure, for Colorado for next year, for next season.
Since you mentioned that, on the back of the Nightmare Room, the little bio, it says you are the resident playwright for the Thin Air Theater Company of Cripple Creek, Colorado.
That's correct.
First of all, that's still accurate?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so what does that mean, resident playwright?
I am the every year. Let's knock one off for COVID. Since I think it was 2009, 2008, I've had at least 1 or 2 plays produced by Thin Air Theater Company and the city of Cripple Creek at the Butte Theater in Colorado, which is a restored Victorian theater that became known for melodrama theater. And it's a gorgeous, gorgeous spot right in the mountains. It's 2 miles up. And it's right now. There's a full professional cast doing Haunting at the Old Homestead right now, which is about a haunted brothel, and it starts in the present, goes back to the past for the whole story, and then comes back to the present. But yeah, they called me in and commissioned every year. They commission either 1 or 2 plays from me, and sometimes it's adapting an existing play, and other times it's complete originals. I've done adaptations of Dracula, of Frankenstein, of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's Dr. Jekyll's Medicine Show, and cool. So they're all of those are with a little Cripple Creek twist. So it's incorporates local history and the mining district in the 1890s, and
well, no, you're not in Colorado, right?
I'm not.
So how did you get hooked up with Cripple Creek? Colorado.
It was one of my first gigs out of school. I went and performed in the summertime, back when it was in an old hotel, in the basement of an old hotel before they moved on to the theater. It's a theater that had been going on since the 1950s. The Mackin family has been running it, and so I auditioned, got in, and I did every summer. I did like 150, 160 performances of the same play.
Wow.
And fell in love with the place and stayed in touch with the producers. And eventually they brought me in to direct one of their shows. And then another buddy and I, Chris Armbruster, who's one of the one of the producers of Thin Air Theater Company, we went in and we pitched a Christmas show, a Cripple Creek Christmas Carol. So it's a Christmas Carol, but not really. It's about a miserly old fellow who reads it, and then all these characters from Cripple Creek history come in, and they're doing that. They're doing that this year too. I think they've done it about 10 times. But then the city said, we want more of this. We want to go full year round, and so we went in, and there were 4 of us. We pitched what we thought a season should look like, what each slot should be. And so since then, it's been steady. It's been an original, what is it? Usually a melodrama adaptation and a musical in the summer, running in rotation. Then usually like a Neil Simon or something. And then the Halloween, right when the aspens are turning. So you go up to Cripple Creek and you see a spooky show, and then a Christmas show. So I've written about 14 plays. Full-length plays over the course of probably 13 years.
Yeah. Would you like to direct again?
Oh yeah. They've had me out a few times. I've gone out. I've directed the Christmas show 3 times. Haven't I ever directed a Halloween show? I shouldn't I?
I think
the
so.
timing's never worked out. I need to do that. And I've directed a few summer shows. So. Yeah, it's a great vacation. They fly you out, they feed you, you get housed, and you direct a show, and you're in the mountains. I mean, there's what's not to like.
I was just gonna. That sounds like a great little trip for anybody to just, I could take a week off, go out to Cripple Creek, catch a show, the Halloween show. Got to be the Halloween show.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that sounds like a nice little trip.
Yeah, I love it out there. I love it out there. And my whole family's out there. And then I have to make a trip to Estes and see the Stanley, of course. And so.
All right. Well, let's jump into our main event.
Yes.
So your choice for your favorite horror was
1968, Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Flesh Eaters.
Night of the Flesh Eaters, yes.
Wait, I'm sorry. No,
yes.
Night of the Living Dead. I do not have a copy of this movie currently. I can't hold it up.
I have I just picked up this on eBay. It's a book about, I've never read this one. It's about the making of.
Nice. I'll have to check that out. Yeah. I do have this. This is my one. How much it's signed.
Of course it is.
I got to meet her.
Yes.
We have a twice yearly, normally when there's no COVID, yearly show here called Cinema Wasteland. And she was there, so I, of course, picked that up. All right, so let's see. First of all, let's start with, in case there's possibly anybody that's not familiar with this movie, which sounds crazy to me.
They're lucky.
Can you give
see it for the first time?
A quick synopsis.
It jumps right into it. It's I'd like to say it's about Barbara and her brother, but it ends up about being much more. It's in the late 1960s, something terrible happens that causes the recently deceased to rise from the dead and begin eating the flesh of victims. And it's the birth of the modern zombie film. And it's a collection of mismatched characters stuck in a farmhouse together, battling not only the undead but themselves. And it's raw, it's gritty. Some of it's very bad. Some of the acting's horrible. Some of the acting's amazingly good. The cinematography is fantastic. It will get under your skin and it will never leave.
Okay, and I always forget to say this early enough, apparently. But we're going to be talking about this film. We're going to kind of break it down, I think, maybe. I don't know. So, folks, potential spoilers. Again, I find it difficult to imagine that there's anybody that's not familiar with this. But maybe some younger folks haven't had the pleasure of seeing it yet. So,
Right.
Spoilers ahead. We're just going to get that out of the way.
That's right.
All right. So, how about this? We'll start a little differently. I haven't asked anybody this before. What was your introduction to this movie?
It was on a black and white television set. And I sought it out. This was back when you had to wait around for shows to come on. And I had seen the knockoff, which he proudly said it's a knockoff. Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. Bob Clark's zombie epic. And I fell in love with that, and I thought it terrified me. I used to creep out to the den and watch while everybody was asleep. I'd set a little timer and crawl out there and watch horror movies on Saturday night. And so I saw that, and I was talking to my friend. I said, "Oh my, did you see this terrifying movie?" He said, "Yeah, well, you know what it's based on." What? Well, they just stole Night of the Living Dead. And I went, "What?" And so my father was a professor at our local college, and I had access to the whole college library. So I went in and did research on it. I found a couple books that mentioned it, and went, okay. So every week I would wait. I'd get the little TV guide, see when it was coming up, because again, you couldn't just order it. And then it was coming up on Pyewacket Presents, I believe, out of the Quad Cities. And so I set my timer and got up and watched it. And I mean, yeah, even with the commercials, it was tense in that den. And it really got into my heart. I had never seen anything like it. And I was hooked. It changed my DNA.
Well, first of all, you mentioned Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things.
Yes.
Which I saw, I believe it was on the Ghoulardi show.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Ghoulardi. I don't know if it could have been Son of Ghoul. All I remember is that it had the crazy sound effects that they would put in.
Right.
So that was an interesting experience. And coincidentally, we have locally here The Mummy and the Monkey, a pair of horror hosts, and they do live videos every Friday. And right. I believe, I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I believe last night they showed Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things.
Oh, I mean, it's that. I find it much more dated than Night of the Living Dead. I mean, there's some inappropriateness in it, but it packs a wallop once it gets going.
Yeah. Well, Night of the Living Dead has, I mean, there are a few things that sort of tie it to when it was made, but overall it has more of a timeless feel, I think.
Yeah. It has a dread. It has a dread that opening sequence sets up so well, and kind of like Psycho, where you follow the main character and then it's passed off.
Yes.
To Norman Bates. This is, you follow Barbara, and then boom, she's catatonic, and suddenly it's Ben and Mr. Cooper at odds. And
I'm trying to be slightly more professional here. I've done quite a few of these episodes, but I'm still finding my footing. So I do want to mention, written by John A. Russo and George A. Romero, and of course directed by George A. Romero. Again, just in case, that one person that hasn't seen this movie. And then starring, let's see, we'll go Dwayne Jones, Judith O'Dea, Those are the only two people we need.
Carl Hardman.
That's a horrible thing for me to say. Those are the only two. Yes, Carl Hardman, Marilyn Eastman, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, possibly cause some trouble. I don't want to get canceled, but Marilyn Eastman was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Watching this again, I had forgotten just what a beautiful woman she was.
I don't know why she was with him.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's a great cast.
Yeah.
I thought Carl Hardman as Harry Cooper did a fantastic job. And I guess for just reading some trivia that both he and Marilyn Eastman did a lot of stuff behind the scenes.
Yep.
As well. And I'm wondering, and I could probably find this information. So we're going to jump ahead a little bit. We're going to jump around, but there's that body at the top of the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And when Ben goes up and is pulling it with the rug, you can see it's a woman laying there. Clearly. Do you know? It looked like Marilyn Eastman to me.
It could very well be. She's also she played the zombie who eats the bug off the tree.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of double, triple, quadruple casting. Carl Hardman is a zombie who gets shot in the shoulder from behind. Only see him from behind.
Right.
So yeah.
So we'll go back to the beginning, and you've got that sort of long shot of just the road,
and
then the car, and we're introduced to Barbara and her brother going to see their father's grave.
That's right.
And I just watched it this morning, and I'm still forgetting little details. And then we get one of the most classic lines in horror, which is "They're coming to get you, Barbara." And he's fantastic delivering that line. And we see our first, we don't know it, zombie. Oh, one of the things I noticed is, there's this big debate between slow zombies and fast zombies. That guy was pretty fast.
He's quick on his feet.
And pretty smart. He's trying to open the car door.
And he uses a tool. He said it. Everything you need to know about zombies is right there. He's the what is he? Patient zero.
Well, what do you have thoughts on the fast zombie, slow zombie debate?
I prefer slow ones. I prefer because I prefer dread with zombies than more action. But I wouldn't throw a fast zombie off the screen. I mean, I loved the Dawn remake. It was brutal. I mean, it was and the first time you see them running, I'm like, of course they can run. They just died. Of course they can run. So.
Oh, I'm going to court more controversy. The only Zack Snyder directed film I really like.
Well, I'm going to have to unsubscribe right now.
Oh, no. Are you a Zack Snyder fan?
I really enjoyed his stuff. I really
no.
So sorry.
I do. I think 300's okay. And I like most of Man of Steel. There are aspects to it that I don't like. But I don't like Batman v Superman or Justice League.
Did you see the Snyder cut?
Or no, I'm not gonna
see. That's the thing. I was right with you on that, and it's a completely different movie. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, one, I don't have HBO Max, but I don't know. 4 hours.
It flew by.
I don't like Sucker Punch.
Yeah.
Beautiful effects and things.
Yeah.
But I just think it's a bad movie. And I can't stand the whole slowing down and ramping up. Yeah. I think it's way overused.
But you really liked Dawn of the Dead. There you go.
Which was written by James Gunn,
a
writer-director that I do love.
Yeah.
Oh no, I can't believe I lost you on that.
Oh well.
Okay. I was just told yesterday at work that I should court controversy.
Oh, okay.
That's the way to get the hits on my videos.
Well, I'll shatter my mug over this one.
And going back to slow zombies.
Yes.
I'm going to assume, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you saw the remake of Night of the Living Dead with Tony Todd and Patricia Tallman.
Right.
And they sort of address, if I remember correctly, because I've seen that even less recently than this one, the whole, how easy it is to sort of just weave your way around the slow zombies, as long as there's not 50 of them.
And that's what that's what I really like. I like the fact that individually you can, and except for the first one in 1968, that guy was fast. Yeah, I mean, individually you can push them down, you can do whatever, but it's the fact that push one down, there's another. Push that one down, there's another. There's 3, there's 5, there's 12, you know. That's that growing dread of.
Well, that's part of the thing with this movie. So we have the single one in the graveyard, and Johnny doesn't make it. Johnny, right?
Yes.
He doesn't make it. Barbara, I like the fact that she doesn't just have the car keys, and maybe this is before it became a trope, but she didn't just pull down the visor and have the spare keys fall out.
Right, right.
But she is able to put the car in neutral and coast away.
Trivia. They had a car available with a pre-dented one side, and so
nice.
So they were able to film the good side and then achieve that dent with the tree.
I wondered about that.
No cost.
Because I was like, all right, this is a low budget movie. Did they just wreck somebody's car? So she scrapes a tree, has to jump out of the car, goes running, finds this farmhouse. And so she goes inside, she sees a body upstairs, nobody else until Ben shows up.
Right.
And then we're introduced to other characters a little later, but it's that, I mean, Ben is pretty decisive.
Yeah.
But it does become a matter of multiplication. When he arrives, at the point he arrives, he says there's just a couple out there. But they just keep, it gets to the point where there's just too many.
Right. It's one of those situations where you want to follow somebody's, you know, like Cooper, maybe he has it right. Ben, maybe he has it right. You get to the point where going, nobody has it right, because there is no answer from inside right now. It's a problem that is bigger than the characters can actually solve. And once you realize the enormity of the problem, that's when that dread really, the floor just falls out, and you really empathize with them, and they're scrambling for ideas of how to get from point A to B to C, getting there, you know, get the keys, get this, get that. But you start seeing the futility, and like you said, it really reflects that period in time when people felt powerless and that events were getting too big for individuals to overcome.
Excuse me. I noticed, I think it's when I was watching, one of the times I was watching Dawn of the Dead. Now I've not seen even a fraction of all the zombie movies that are out there.
Right.
But in my experience, the zombie movies that I have seen, the problem, the problem is obviously zombies, but the problems for the characters always seem to come down to some sort of human error. And see, when I was watching Dawn of the Dead, and they're moving the trucks in front of the mall, and it's just dropping that backpack and having to go out of the truck, out of the safety to get it. I think that's when he ends up getting bit. Yeah. And I was just like, yeah, if he hadn't dropped that backpack, this would be fine. Well, up until the biker gang shows up. But so in this one, it is sort of, do they stay upstairs? Do they go downstairs? What's the best course of action? Should they have tried to leave sooner?
Right.
Instead of taking the time to board up all the doors and windows, should Ben have been looking for the key or some way to unlock that gas pump?
Right.
Because maybe they could have been gone an hour or so earlier.
I think everybody should have taken a clue from Barbara, because she had no idea how to handle herself around any of this mess, and her big idea was to go into this farmhouse, and apparently everybody else had this idea too. So no, they're probably characters we never met that went, screw that, I'm not going to the farmhouse. I'm going down to the diner. Maybe there's some National Guard guys down there.
Yeah.
So these are the people who all had the same bad idea to lock themselves in to this one option.
Yeah, and of course, as you said, we think Barbara's the main character, and then she just sort of switches off.
Yeah,
for the most part. And I again, watching it, she finds a butcher knife, and she's walking around, looking around. There's a point where she's so out of it, she's holding the blade, just sort of. And I'm assuming, because she had it in one hand, I assume she just sort of transferred it to the other hand, and not squeezing it. She's not cutting herself or anything, but she's just so completely.
It's just her pacifier.
Yeah. And even when Ben finds some shoes, he's like, I've got shoes, because she lost her shoes when she was running to the farmhouse, and he ends up putting at least one on her.
Right.
I don't remember if he put both on her.
Yeah, she's really she's the cold open. I mean, she's but she's also, this is deep, she's also the audience that thought it was in for one movie, and then suddenly, wait a minute, I'm not in for like monsters with tape and ray guns, and so I'm into this is something new. This is something I'm not prepared for.
Yes. And so, and we're thinking, the audience, that, okay, so now we've got Barbara and Ben. Maybe someone else will show up. We have no idea. There's just zombies. They're afraid of fire. They're smart enough to knock out the headlights of the truck.
Yeah.
But then when Ben is off doing whatever he's doing, Barbara's on the couch, we see someone creep up from the basement. And it's, of course, Mr. Cooper, and I don't remember the young kid's name. Tom? Yeah.
Tom and Judy? Is it Judy?
Judy's his girlfriend.
Yeah. Like I said, I haven't seen it this year yet. So
Helen is the beautiful Marilyn Eastman. And, of course, Kyra Shawn, I don't know how you say her name, is their kid, with another iconic moment later in the movie. But so we're introduced to two more characters that have been hiding out in the basement. And immediately, Harry Cooper and Ben are butting heads.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult, I think, to necessarily get in the headspace of certain characters. So how do you feel about Harry Cooper staying in the basement up to that point? Because Ben says, you should have heard us screaming.
Right.
You should have heard this. Why didn't you come up to see if someone needs help? And I mean, I can understand, my wife and kid are down here.
Right.
They're my priority.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's like, probably should help people.
Yeah. Well, he is definitely me and mine. He's a circle the wagon guy, and you can tell. I keep forgetting that their marriage is really on the rocks. I didn't get that it's an extreme place. But he's self-preservation first of family, and even above family, he's his own guy. He is centered on himself, bordering on narcissistic. He is a self-contained. He's his own island, and Ben is much more about let's open this up. Let's get everybody. We got to help everybody. What's going on? And so, in order of survival, I think Cooper, if he had had his way and he had never come upstairs, he could have waited out all the hubbub, and he was actually onto something for his own goal. He could have just stayed and saved probably himself, Judy, Tom, and Ben and Barbara would have fended for themselves and become part of the horde, and then he would Cooper would be the hero.
Well, again, I can see both sides.
Yeah.
Cooper is, we stay in the basement. All we have to do is fortify one door.
Yeah.
That's it. And if we have supplies, we can wait it out.
Right.
As long as we can defend that door.
Yeah.
And Ben is, we have multiple exits up here. If they're coming in this way, we can get out that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see both sides, because if you're in the basement and you can't defend that door,
mm-hmm.
you're completely screwed.
Right. But there is no compromise on Cooper or Ben's part. They are both just immovable objects, and it's both of their fault. It's both of their fault.
But there is a point where Cooper cooperates with Ben.
Well,
then up to a point. There's a window where he does.
Yes.
And then he goes back to his old ways.
Yeah. Then yes. Just and they cooperate one last time, just enough to nail the board back to the door over the door.
Yes.
And then it finally erupts.
Yes.
Their animosity toward each other,
which I think is a sign of the wonderful writing.
Yeah.
Of this story, is that a character like Harry Cooper isn't just this flat one-note person.
Mm-hmm.
He has a bit of an arc.
Mm-hmm.
We think he's one thing. Turns out he can do something unexpected, something good, I guess. But then kind of goes back, and everybody else seems more willing to work together.
Yeah.
Tom and Judy especially.
Mm-hmm.
And Helen, I think, just wants to oppose Harry.
Right. But it's nice to see. I mean, the fact that they have a kid is nice for that moment when she's, eating her family. But it's also, we realize we're capturing this family at the end of the family unit, and so it comes with a real history. So if it was just Harry down there by himself, that'd be a completely different movie. But he's got these ties that show that there might be he's not just being an asshole. He has honest reasons for doing what he's doing. He thinks he is doing the right thing.
Well, let's speculate.
Yeah.
If all three of them,
mm-hmm.
Harry, Helen, and I don't remember if the daughter even has a name. I assume she has a name. If they had all survived, do you think this experience would have brought them together?
No.
Or would they still have...
No, they hate each other.
Okay.
They hate each other, and she really hates him. You can tell. Yeah. She hates every choice he's made, and he's withheld information from her. They both obviously care very much about their daughter, but they don't care about each other at all anymore. They're practically in the Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf stage of their marriage.
And then we have Tom and Judy, who are probably the most generic characters, I would say.
Yeah.
But they're fine. I'm not. Well, I mean, I was about to say I'm not sure why Judy decided to run out and join them on their trip to the gas pump. But I guess I can see it. She's scared. Tom is her anchor, I suppose.
Right. I just rewatched that scene. They have this one scene that's the out and out the worst acted scene is where they just give the camera to Tom and Judy, and they're talking about something about a flood. I can't even get it straight.
Right.
She was afraid to go, and it's one of those scenes that you're used to those scenes throughout a movie of this, a B movie like this. You're used to that, so it's contained in this one scene. But actually, I was thinking about what you were saying, and she's actually fighting her fear by going. So she's actually evolving, but in doing so,
yeah, well, it didn't go well.
doesn't go well. Nobody's choices go well.
Yeah, he's telling her, she smiles for him, and he says, "Oh, there's that smile. You always have that smile for me." And he's basically telling her, "You need to listen to me. Remember when the town flooded or whatever?
Yeah.
I got you through it.
Yeah.
So let's do this." And then they hug, and he's like, "Where's that smile?"
Mm-hmm.
So they, I think Ben did something incredibly dangerous. So Ben had taken this truck again. For anybody out there who doesn't know, Ben had taken this truck. He was running out of gas. He stopped at the farmhouse because he saw a gas pump, but there's a lock on it. So Tom finds a key labeled gas pump. So they formulate a plan, and we'll get into that. But when they get to the gas pump, the key doesn't work. So this is the thing I think is incredibly dangerous. Ben shoots the lock off the gas pump.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is insanity.
It sounds like a late night. It sounds like they were shooting late at night, and it's like, what? Okay, we got him into this situation. What are we going to do? Okay, have him shoot it.
Although now that I think about it, so they formulated this plan where this is when Mr. Cooper is cooperating.
Right.
They've made some Molotov cocktails. Because the zombies are afraid of fire. He goes upstairs and he's throwing these Molotov cocktails out the window to disperse the crowd. Ben and Tom, and then Judy ends up joining in, are going to jump in the truck, go to the gas pump, gas up the truck, come back so they can all get out of there.
Right.
So they get to the gas pump. The key doesn't work. Ben shoots the lock off the gas pump.
Yes, as one does.
And then when Tom grabs and he had a torch, a chair or table leg or whatever, and he had set it on the ground. So when Tom grabs the gas pump, he's just spraying gas everywhere. Mm-hmm. So now I always thought that was just Tom being an idiot. But is it possible the handle was damaged by the gunshot?
Oh,
and he couldn't control the fact.
This is what I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch that scene in particular now. This next time around. Huh? I never thought of that. He's washing the car with gasoline.
Yeah. And then Ben is like, "Watch out for the torch," and then it just goes up.
Yep. Well, they drive off with it first, and then Judy's belt.
Right. Well, the tires.
No, is it her belt? What is something about Judy? Either it's the belt or
something's caught.
My jacket's caught. He
takes off, but the tires are on fire. The side of the truck is on fire. He jumps out. She's caught, and then boom.
There was a lot of fire for a little indie film company to be.
I think it's when Ben first sets that big chair on fire and dumps it off the front porch. I think that's when one of the zombies is on fire, and I'm like, I forgot there were fire stunts in this movie.
Yeah.
But I just thought Tom was an idiot because he just pulls that gas nozzle out and is spraying it. But now I'm trying to be nice.
You're trying to be nice to Tom.
Benefit of doubt. Maybe it was damaged by that shot.
One of my favorite, just a beautiful shot, is when Barbara's getting initially to the farmhouse, and she runs and she grabs onto the gas pump.
Yeah.
And it's beautifully shot. It looks like something out of Ingmar Bergman, just the way it's framed and the camera moves. And I had never gone. My God, Romero set that up early. Remember this thing. This is going to be important.
Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, and it goes off.
Oh yes. Oh yeah, there were some incredibly beautiful shots in this movie. And again, as I was watching it this morning, there's that first iconic shot where you see the field and just the row of zombies early in the film. It's just beautiful, great composition, as you said, and as I just said, I think it's an iconic shot.
I think there's one that bookends that is after the night. It's in the morning, and they're still walking around, but all of the drama's gone out of the zombies. The zombies at this point are outnumbered by the posse, and there's something about the mundane shoot them down that is just as creepy as the heightened drama of the night.
It is, but I felt that the zombies felt kind of forlorn. Because at that point, they're just, when we see that, and yes, the humans are outnumbering. So now we have the field with a line of humans, and you just sort of see these lonely zombies almost walking around in circles.
Yeah.
With no purpose.
Right.
But another shot that I loved was at a point when Ben is shooting out the window, and of course he doesn't know that you shoot him in the head.
Right.
At this point, and so he shoots one zombie in the chest, and it kind of falls back. There's trees, so there's shadows, and as it comes forward, and just the shadows of the tree branches on its face, and then he shoots it again, and it falls back, and then it comes forward, and just that almost a noir feel. I always get that, the shadows of the blinds across the private eye's face kind of feel to these leaves and branches, the shadows of that across the zombie's face. Just, yeah.
And that really gets across the relentless, the mundane relentlessness of it.
So during all of this, they turn the radio on, and they're getting news reports from the radio. Eventually, they find a TV, and they're getting reports from the TV. So do you think it's the satellite that caused this?
It's the only mention in any of the of the three films of his, zombie films of his, that I enjoy. I guess it was. I mean, they went all the way to DC to film some additional footage.
But they had the military guy and the two scientists.
Yeah.
And the scientists are saying it was the satellite that went to Venus, I believe.
Yeah.
And was coming back, and they got weird radiation signals, and they blew it up.
Right.
The scientists are saying, yes, we believe that's the cause, but the military guy's saying, no, we don't have enough evidence yet.
Right.
I'm not going to say that's the cause.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone involved or if there's ever been a definitive answer.
Maybe in the original Flesh Eaters version of the script, it's a little more fleshed out. Is
that fun?
I guess so. My wife has that syndrome where she says puns spontaneously, and I think I'm picking it up. I love those. The TV and the radio sections. It just has a very War of the Worlds aspect to it, and and I love how it builds from radio to television, and then adding in the rescue stations at the bottom. Really.
And the first one they show is Youngstown, which I assume is Youngstown, Ohio.
Yep.
Which is actually quite a few hours away from me, but still Ohio. Yeah. And I don't know if it's iconic, but of course I love the sheriff. Is he a sheriff? His line, "Oh, they're dead. They're all messed up."
They're all messed up.
It's just wonderful. And so So the truck blows up. Ben makes it back to the house, but Cooper has locked the door, so he's back to being a villain,
right?
I guess. But then once Ben busts in, Cooper helps him nail the door shut.
Right.
So he's back to being a good guy. But then he ends up trying to take the gun.
Gets shot. Gets his arm eaten off by his
completely
daughter.
Forgot that Ben shot him.
Ben shoots him. His daughter, when Ben goes downstairs, his daughter is over him. After this is all, your favorite, Marilyn, she's already toast. But Cooper's there with one arm. His daughter having munched down on his other.
And I love that. Well, actually, the daughter survives being a zombie. She makes it. She gets upstairs, but he's Ben's downstairs, and Harry Cooper sits up. One-armed Harry Cooper sits up, and so Ben has to shoot him again.
He unloads on him.
Yeah, but then Helen has been killed by her daughter with the garden trowel. Iconic scene again. There's just something about that scene where she wakes up that's so effective, because Ben has looked over. We've seen a couple of shots of her lying there dead, garden trowel sticking out of her chest. We see Harry sit up, Ben kills him, and then we just see what looks like the same old shot of her laying there dead, and then her eyes pop open.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly effective.
It's that change, like it's that suddenly everything's changed. Just like, okay, they yank it out, the movie away from Barbara. Suddenly it's not her movie. It's this. Suddenly all the characters that we know, they're dead, and new versions of them are coming out. And so it's a constant pulling the rug out from under the audience's feet.
And Barbara, again, she goes catatonic. There's one point where she does talk a bit, where Ben gives his story, and then she gives her weird story.
Yes.
But then she still falls back into catatonia, and I like the way she plays things. Like when they're talking about they're going to come back on the news at 3:00, and she's just like, "Oh, we don't have much time. We're going to be back on the news at 3:00.
Yes.
We have to do this. Oh, we have to do that." But then the worst thing for her, when the zombies start breaking in, she sees her brother
with that driver's glove on. That driving.
Yes. But no glasses.
Yes.
And that's essentially her undoing. She completely freezes, I believe, when she sees him, and just gets pulled into the horde.
Yeah. If you think about it, it's every single character dies in their worst possible way. The parents killed by their child. She's killed by her brother. The lovers die together in a ball of fire. And then Ben.
Yeah, that ending.
Yeah, Ben done in by his should-be rescuers.
Yes. Now, we've already mentioned the remake. I love the ending to both versions. So different.
Yeah.
So in this one, of course, Ben makes it through. He survives. And ironically, by going in the basement.
Right.
Locking himself in the basement. And so the posse moves through. They're picking off the zombies. They're throwing them on bonfires. And Ben hears all of this. He hears the gunshots. He hears sirens, I believe, the helicopter possibly.
Yeah.
He comes upstairs, looks out the window, and they're like, "There's one."
Yep.
And they pop him in the head.
There's another one for the fire.
Yep. Thrown on the fire. Now in the remake, I believe Harry Cooper kills Ben. It's a reverse, or
Ben Ben is injured. I can't remember if it's by Harry, and he goes down in the basement. But when he comes back up, he's got Savini eyes. So
yeah, so I think it's a reversal of what happens in this one. I think because I have not seen the remake in decades. I think Harry shoots him. He becomes a zombie, and maybe Barbara has to kill him.
Barbara kills Cooper, who's alive and not zombified.
Right. Harry goes and hides in the basement. Barbara, who's an action hero in the remake.
Yeah.
Barbara is there when the posse shows up. They come in. Harry comes out of the basement, and she just murders him. Basically revenge for his role in Ben's death. And she's like, oh, yeah, he was a zombie. But I love that. Yeah. That's a great ending as well.
I love the beautiful montage at the end of the original with all the snapshots. That reminds me of the beginning of Texas Chainsaw. Yeah, but I love the final shot being Ben, and then the original, the first zombie that we see in the cemetery, juxtaposed. Just like, this is what's going to happen to all of us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically, maybe not the coming back and eating flesh part, but yeah, we're all
One can hope, Eric.
So, of course, famously, there was a copyright error. It was originally titled Night of the Flesh Eaters. They decided to make a last-minute change to Night of the Living Dead. Did not add the copyright.
Did not.
And so this film has since been in the public domain.
Which is why I have tons of different versions on VHS, DVD.
Now, I don't know how that affects novelizations. Because John Russo has written a novel, Night of the Living Dead.
Right.
But there are others.
Right.
There are other novelizations of the movie. And years ago, I used to write reviews for Monster Librarian. And one of the books they sent me was Night of the Living Dead. I do not recall who the author is, although it is my only blurb. On Amazon, they have my, I'm a blurb. It says Eric Smith, Monster Librarian, right there on the page.
Good book to be on.
But what the author did was flesh out everybody's backstory. So it's not just Ben telling us about what happened. That's a scene in the book.
Him being at the diner beforehand,
and seeing the truck crash and all of that stuff. And we have the scene with the Coopers where their car ends up getting turned over.
Right.
I don't remember if there's some backstory for Tom and Judy, but I did think that was interesting. I enjoyed that he fleshed it out. But again, I have no idea, because the movie doesn't have a copyright. Anybody can make a novelization
Apples and
of
oranges,
it. That just
I'm
seems
not
weird.
Quite sure. Yeah.
But so that's the version of that I have read. And there's tons of comic books and stuff. I don't think I've read any of those. Although I did read a zombie comic that George Romero wrote. I don't recall the name of it, but I had it back in the day before I sold off the collection. Now I'm rebuilding the collection, but that's neither here nor there. And of course, he went on to make Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead,
Diary of the
Land.
Dead.
I think Land of the Dead is next.
Yes.
Then Diary.
And then what was that? There was
Survival of the Dead, I think.
There was one more that I went, that's a bridge too far. I just can't.
I saw up to Diary. I did not see the one after that.
Yeah.
And Diary is the found footage type. Yeah, the first three are classics.
Yeah.
I saw Land of the Dead in the theater. So I think it's the only one that I've seen in the theater.
I saw actually Night is the only one I have not. I want to see Night at a drive-in. That's how I want to see it as a double feature. I saw Dawn as a midnight movie in college. I saw Day in the theater when it came out, and Land also when it came out. So,
it's possible, and it's been so long I don't remember. It's possible I saw Dawn of the Dead before I saw Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Possibly. My biggest, you talk about the drive-in, and yeah, this would be a great drive-in movie. My best story for that, or anecdote, whatever, is I saw, when it was brand new, got to see Evil Dead at the drive-in.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. But now as far as this one goes, though, and I don't remember if it was the same show, Cinema Wasteland, where I got this lovely side.
Yes.
They had this Night of the Living Dead animated. I don't remember what it was called.
Right.
But it was the original audio from the movie, but dozens and dozens of artists.
Right. Yep.
Animated.
Yep.
Each scene.
Right.
And they screened that at Cinema Wasteland. I was there for that. I don't remember if it was any type of premiere.
Yeah.
At that time, and I thought that was an interesting experience.
That sounds cool.
But the only problem, like, each animated section ranged from just 10 seconds maybe to a minute or so.
So your brain's trying to piece it all together.
So many different styles that at a point it was almost overload. But again, I suppose if you know the movie well enough, and again, it was the original audio,
right,
then it wasn't too bad. It was just, I think it was an interesting experiment. And again, coincidentally, I was just at the store today and saw that they have a new animated movie, Night of the Living Dead.
Oh.
Like straight animated Night of the Living Dead movie.
I'll let you watch that one. I'm going to watch 1968 again. I'm going to get the best copy I can see. This is funny. I just remembered this. I actually called George Romero one time and got through and talked to him. It was I was writing some college paper on horror films, and I went, I should just call. I think it was back when they had Laurel Entertainment. And so I went, I should just call the office and see. And they said, okay, hold on. And wait a little bit. And he was there. I asked him a few questions. I can't remember what I talked about because I was just all abuzz. And I was writing down quick so I could have my little quotes for my paper. But that was fun. That was nice.
I did something like that once with a cover artist. This artist who actually did the paperback covers for Desperation and The Regulators.
Oh, yeah.
But at the time, there was a new set of H.P. Lovecraft editions out, and he had done the covers for those three and interior illustrations for the third one. And instead of just, of course, it had about the author, but it also had about the illustrator.
Right.
And it said he lived in Oberlin, Ohio. I was like, that's crazy. So I grabbed an Oberlin, Ohio phone book, and he was in there. So I just called him up. I was like, I asked him if he had a store or a studio.
Right.
I wasn't just like, hey, I'm a dude that likes your covers.
I'm standing outside your house right now.
Standing outside the window. But we talked for over an hour.
Yeah.
And he was actually working on a Stephen King cover.
Yeah.
At the time. But so not anyone all the way up there at George Romero's level, but this guy's done a ton of covers, and he's done Stephen King. So
I love how those two covers work together.
Yeah. He did spoil a book for me though. We were talking. He did covers for a series of books, and I'd only read like the first two, and he started talking about the third or fourth one and said so. I was like, whoa, I haven't read that yet. Basically told me that one of the characters turned into a vampire. Spoilers, people, if you can figure out what I'm talking about. But anyway, I was like, hey, dude, spoilers, come on. All right, so any final thoughts? Anything else you want to say about the classic George A. Romero film, Night of the Living Dead?
It inspired me to pick up a camera, and I with my high school buddies, we made our own half-hour long zombie film, Twilight of the Dead, and with full prosthetics and makeups, and I actually coated my arm in gauze and set it ablaze, and
Nice.
lost all the hair on that arm, but it's a great shot. And and that it turned me. It turned me to the dark side. It was a big influence on me, and it's I have to learn. I have to really learn from it that unhappy endings are okay. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, does that film still exist? Twilight of the
Oh
Living
yeah,
Dead?
I have it. Oh yeah, I have it. I have it in Dropbox right now. Yeah, I can send you the link and you can watch it. You can watch as long as you can bear it. I completely recreate the cemetery scene.
My only screenwriting credit from 1990.
Yes.
And I don't even remember the people that made this. I was in Iceland.
Yes.
And one of the guys I was stationed there with had a camera. At the time, it was like the camera. It had a floating head. So when you were recording, you could pause and it would lock in all this crazy stuff. So he was always making these little films. And he took a story of mine or a story idea, made it into this wonderfully cheesy. Oh man, I can't believe I just drew a blank. Plan 9 from Outer Space. Ed Wood.
Ed Wood.
Wonderfully cheesy Ed Wood type movie. But I can't remember his name. I have no idea if that still exists
Oh,
anywhere.
you don't have a copy. You don't have any of it.
Oh, I have nothing. But it was. What's crazy is the fact that we were at a radar site.
Yeah.
And so he got permission to film inside the radar site. So you have actual footage of military people. He had actual footage of military jets. But then the UFO is very clearly two paper plates stapled together with UFO written on it and strings.
Mm-hmm.
And when the jets shoot the UFO out of the air, they set it on fire and it burned through the strings on one end, so it just flops out of frame. The aliens were just two dudes wrapped in tinfoil with a desk lamp pointing up, and he used maybe this is why it doesn't exist anymore. Star Trek sound effects.
Yes. I see. Yes.
Wonderfully cheesy, and I really wish, at the very least, I could remember who it was that made that, so I could try to find them and see if it still exists anywhere.
Man,
but this was again 1990, so
that'd be the find of the century.
A long time ago.
I finally transferred this. I had made a few horror films when I was younger, and I had a box with the films in it, and then a loose Super 8 film on top of it. And I went away to college. I came back, the box was gone, and my mother had thrown away like three full films, and she felt horrible. She felt horrible about it. So she bankrolled the the zombie picture that I made over the course of 2 summers.
Nice. Very nice. All right. Excuse me. And I'm out of beverage. I can't drink anything.
God.
My wonderful mug is empty.
Mine is as well.
I'm not going to, there's a little drop. Now I can do that. Okay. So we're nothing else we need to say about Night of the Living Dead?
Night of the Living Dead. If you haven't seen it, see it. If you've seen it, see it again.
Yes, absolutely.
And do not watch the colorized version, no matter what. It's meant to be seen in pure black and white.
I'm trying to remember if I ever saw it colorized.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember.
It was in the public domain, so it was ripe for being badly colorized early on in the process.
Yeah, there are some bad versions out there, even black and white versions, just horrible transfers or whatever. When I did own it, I believe I had like the one that was put out by Romero.
Right.
Like they put together a real nice package. Yeah. And I wanted to make sure that he was the one, or they were all the people involved, ones that were going to benefit from it. Unfortunately, that's one of the movies that in the barren times got sold so I could pay bills.
Right.
Have not picked up another copy of it yet. All right. So before we got into the movie, we talked a little bit about some of your ideas, what you're doing. So is there anything you want to plug?
Anything I want to plug? Right now, just go and see The Haunting at the Old Homestead in Cripple Creek, Colorado, and get this spooky trilogy. It's perfect for Halloween, and your life will be changed by these books. Yeah, this is my little. There's a lot of autobiographical stuff in these books, and every single one. And as I grow older and older, I realize I thought I was Peter in it, but I think I'm a little more Ellen than anything else.
Not a bad character to be. All right. If you care to say, where can people find you online?
casorensenwrite.com.
All right. Okay, I think that's it. So I'm going to do my outro. If you'll stick around for a minute after I stop the recording.
Absolutely. Let me just have some fake coffee here.
Yeah. We'll just have a sip. Delicious. Okay, well, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, folks, for watching. If you have any comments, questions, put them in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I think that's it for this episode of My Favorite Horror With. So until next time, read more books. And